Hello and welcome to IELTS Express. Today we are going to learn about a very important structure, a grammatical structure that you can use in the IELTS exam, in the writing and the speaking. If you use this structure, you are more likely to get a 6.5 or above in your score. So before we proceed, please download the required documents you will need to participate in the lesson. You can do this by going to the link which is showing now just underneath as I'm speaking. If you go to this link and download the two documents which are called Time Travel and Second Conditional Guided Discovery. You can pause the video if you like and then come back and then you are ready to start. Okay, so now that you've got the sheets, we can start. What I'd like you to do is I would like you to read the article on time travel. Take about 3 minutes to read it. Just go through it quickly and see if you can get a general understanding of what it says. You don't have to understand every single word, just get a general understanding. So don't take longer than 3 minutes and then come back. You can pause the video. Okay, what would you do if you could travel back in time? Think about it. What would you do if you could travel back in time? Where would you go? If I could travel back in time, I would go to ancient Egypt. So have a look at the second conditional guided discovery worksheet. It has that sentence that I just said. If I could travel back in time, I would go to ancient Egypt. Now we're going to answer the 3 questions below. The first one is it possible to travel back in time? If you can't remember the answer, or you think you don't know the answer, have a look back at the article and see what it says. The answer is no. We can't travel back in time. This is not possible. It's not scientifically possible because time travel to the past would create or could create a paradox, something that cannot happen. Okay, so back to the questions on the sheet. The second question is relating to the sentence that is above. If I could travel back in time, I would go to ancient Egypt. And the question is this sentence talking about something real or imaginary? What do you think? It's talking about something imaginary because I can't travel back in time. It's not possible. So it's talking about something imaginary. Let's have a look at the third question. Is this sentence talking about the past, present, or future? You have a think. See if you can answer it. The sentence is talking about the present and the future, not the past. This is confusing because we have the past simple in the sentence. We've got could, which is the past of can. But we're not talking about the past. We're talking about something that we would do in the present or the future. Okay, have a look at the next bit. of the sheet. This is the second conditional, and this is the form. This is how we write the second conditional. So we have the word if plus the subject. Now in the sentence above, the subject is I, if I, plus the past simple, which is could, plus the object, which is back in time. So you've got if I could travel back in time, the subject again, which is I, would, you've got the infinitive, go to ancient Egypt. So what I'd like you to do next is fill in the gaps below with the correct verb and would, and then fill in the space with your own thoughts. You can pause the video now if you'd like to think about it and if you need more time. The first sentence would be, if I won the lottery, you've got won, past of win, I would, what would you do if you won the lottery? If I won the lottery, I would probably go on a round the world trip, or I would buy a house somewhere sunny. Number 2, if I were an animal, I would be, what would you be if you were an animal? If I were an animal, I would be a bird, so I could fly. Second conditional is formed of 2 clauses. A clause is a part of the sentence. When the sentence starts with an if clause, so if the sentence begins with if, like the ones we've just looked at, we use a comma to separate the sentences. We don't need a comma if the sentence starts with the main clause. So we don't have to start with if, we can start with the main part of the sentence. For example, I would go to ancient Egypt if I could travel back in time. So do we always have to start a second conditional sentence with if? No, we don't. I would like you now to find a second conditional question, a question with a second conditional in it, in the time travel article that you just read. Again, you can pause the video if you need some time. So did you find the question? The second conditional question is right at the beginning of the article. And it says, what would you do if you could travel back in time? Okay, so we're going to look at this question and we're going to look at the form. We're going to look at how this question is written and how we can put it together. So we have the question word, in this case it's what, plus would, plus subject, in this case the subject is you, what would you do, which is infinitive, you do, if you, subject again, could travel, past simple, back in time, which is your object. Here's another question. What would you do if you had £1 million? Write down the answer to this question. You can pause the video if you need more time. So what would you do if you had £1 million? If I had £1 million, I would buy myself a nice house and probably start a new business. Let's have a look at number 5. It says, write down the questions to the answers in exercise 1 and 2. So treat number 1 and 2 as answers. So you've got, if I won the lottery, I would, and then you've got whatever you've written. That's your answer. Now, if we were to ask a question to get that answer, what would it be? That's what I would like you to write. So think about it. We've just learnt how to write questions in the second conditional. I would like you to write a question to what could be the answer, which is in number 1. Okay, the answer is, what would you do if you won the lottery? Let's do number 2. That's your answer. So your answer is, if I were an animal, I would be a bird or a cat or a tiger. That's your answer. What is the question to that answer? Again, we've just looked at the question forms and how to put the question together. So if that's your answer, what is your question? Have a think. Pause the video if you need more time. The question is, what would you be if you were an animal? Okay, to finish the lesson off, I would like you to do the exercise below, which says mark the stress in these sentences. Now the stress is where the part of the sentence, the words that sound stronger. So the first sentence is, if I could travel back in time, I would go to ancient Egypt. Have a listen again and mark the stress, underline the stress. If I could travel back in time, I would go to ancient Egypt. Try the next one. If I had £1 million, I would buy a house. So what words sound a bit stronger? The words that should be underlined, the stress, should be in the verbs. If I could travel back in time, I would go to ancient Egypt. So the first one is could and would. And the second one is, if I had £1 million, I would buy a house. The stress is in had and would. Sometimes, if you change the stress in a sentence, it changes the meaning of the sentence. That's why the stress is important. How you say it, how it sounds, is important. Okay, so I hope you have found this lesson useful, and please visit my channel again. I give Skype lessons 1-to-1. I've also got a new IELTS course starting in January in London. If you're looking for IELTS classes, please go to, and if you're in London that is, please go to www.islingtoncl.co.uk, and my website address, which is a bit more complicated, is running through the end below of the video. Please visit my website, and hope to see you again. Bye bye.